And if we execute this step, it will go away and get it and bring it down. And there we go, we've got image.png. Boom, we've got a little headshot. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create an AI headshot generator, making headshots worthy for LinkedIn for 4 cents each. In today's video, we're going to cover how to create the submission form, how to then set up the API keys, the secret keys, etc. And then how to upload the image to get it to generate brand new headshot for LinkedIn. Now, the workflow for today's video will be inside of AI Automation Hub, which is my completely free AI automation community. You come in here, it will be linked, it will be the first link in the description below. You can come along and download the template. Now, once you've gone and downloaded the template, you can just come over to n8n, just like this. Let me delete this, and then we can 3 dots here, import from file, and then you'll get that new file that we just created, headshot generator. Click open, and boom, ready to run. We just need to change our API keys, which we'll show you now. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. So let me go over briefly what this all does before I then go into each node and show you how we can set it all up. We get our picture and details, so like this picture here of my lovely face, boom, there we go. We get the picture and the details that we need for the headshot. So where do you want it? Do you want it in an office? Do you want the background to be blue? Whatever. We then set some variables, and this is essentially for authentication here. So this is to get your API keys and stuff for Cloudinary. We then set those so that we have them and can use them in multiple places, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then we get the binary data. This essentially gets the picture, the image, from on-form submission, because an image is a binary, and as binary we can't pass it as JSON like you normally would. And don't worry, we'll get into it to show you, but basically this gets the picture. We then upload that picture to Cloudinary, which is where we're going to store our picture, because when you pass this to replicate, you have to pass a URL for the picture. You can't pass the actual picture itself. You have to pass where it is. Once we've uploaded that, we then send a request to replicate to use the Flux Context API to generate the headshot. We then use the URL it gives us back to then download this new headshot. Then we use an email to send the email to basically say, you know, that's it, here's your email, it's attached, here's your headshot. Then this code section here essentially generates a bit of configuration that we require, a bit of authentication to then go and delete this picture, because as you can see here, that's Cloudinary, and it'll probably be, because it's working with personal data and stuff, highly secure. So you do need these different portions like this here and this to actually generate the right credential information to access the files. But that is literally it. You get an image, upload it, generate it, send an email, delete it from this Cloudinary. So let's go node by node and actually set this up. So the first thing you want here is an on-form submission. So this essentially just gives you a URL, which you can then go to. Let me open it up here. It's not listening yet, I suppose. But basically, it's just a form that you fill out and click submit. We have authentication none. You could add some basic authentication, because this endpoint's now public, so everyone who watches this video knows it exists. I should add some basic authentication like a username and password or whatever. But we'll just go none, that's fine now. Give it a title, generate headshot. And now for the fields. So this replicate API, which I'll go and show you in a moment, it has specific fields that it requires so that it can generate the headshot. And these fields are captured in this form element. So we have field name, your image. This is of type file, because it's going to be an image that we send, and it's a required field, and we only want one image. You can add some accepted types if you want, like only JPEG, only PNG, or whatever. You then have gender, so it's a drop down of male, female, or none. Then we have background, so do you want like the background behind the person to be black, white, neutral, grey, or an office? Then you have aspect ratio, so you know, do you want it to be square or landscape or whatever? And then we have the output format, so PNG or JPEG. Now, these are the ones which I have as available options, but if we head on over to replicate.com, here's a little example one from before, which I thought was really good. But if we scroll down here, you can see the inputs that it can take. So we have this input underscore image, we have gender, we have background, aspect ratio. You can see these here, you get a bunch of different ones. The background, a bunch of different ones. So this is where I'm getting the information for what to add in. And then you just you basically capture it from the person and then upload it in here. So like in future, like the next step when I turn this into a SaaS, it would be worth considering, instead of having a drop down that says like, you know, Do you want the background to be white, black, neutral, grey, or office? You could have like a little panel of colours to click on, something like that would be cool. But anyway, so on form submission. So let's execute the step and I'll show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like. You just choose a file. So we'll click choose file, and then from here I'll go to my downloads and I'll go and find these here. So PNG, click open, gender, male, background, we'll go neutral, aspect ratio, let's go 1:1, output and PNG. And then we click submit, and that will then submit this form. There we go. So if we come back here, that step has now run, so that's green. So once we've submitted this form, and we've actually got the picture here as you can see, boom. The next step is setting variables. Now the reason I set these variables is because it's like a software engineering principle, dry. Don't repeat yourself. So basically, if you're going to use the same value in more than one location, define it as a variable and then pull it in otherwhere, like elsewhere. So here we have the API key for Cloudinary, the secret, and the Cloud ID. Because we're going to use these when we upload and when we delete. So where do you get these? How do you get these? Etc. So if you head on over to Cloudinary, right, cloudinary.com, you have like 25 gig of space, so loads. And the reason I'm using it is because it's actually, I thought it would be easier to show you how to do it rather than using something like AWS, which for a newbie can be really quite difficult to use. So Cloudinary is what we're using. Now the way we get our information is up the top here. This here is actually the name of your cloud. So for mine it's DD9 blah blah blah. And we copy that in and we paste it as a cloud ID here. Then we have our API key and API secret. And so for that, if we come on over here, go to API keys. And for here, you see there's the key, there's a secret. And what we can do is copy that, and that's your key. Paste that in there. And for the secret, you would reveal this by clicking that. And then it will send you an email. You will then get that confirmation code, put it in. It will show up. And then boom, paste that in there. So if we then execute this step, it will then set these variables so we can pull them in to wherever we need them. So we now have that set up. Next we need to generate a signature. So this bit of code here, I got ChatGPT to generate because, you know, why not? You can actually now inside n8n ask AI, so you can actually write it in natural language and get n8n's underlying AI to then generate code like this, which I thought was pretty cool. But anyway, we have this here. Essentially what it does is it gets the secret and then gets the timestamp, so like right now's time, then creates this string to sign, and then it signs it to turn it into a signature using some sort of hash, right? Now essentially what that means, long and short of it, is you get a secret, you get a timestamp, you jumble them together, and then you run them through a big massive number to then get this result. And this result is then what they're going to use to verify that you are you and that it's with, you know, it's within a specific time, etc. You generate the signature using this, and what this will send us back is a timestamp and the signature. Now, why do we need this? Is because Cloudinary requires that we use it. So we have this as a code node to do that. So the next one is, just before we get into Cloudinary, because I'll show you the signature thing in a minute, we then want to get the binary data. Now, why? So this on form submission, you get this here, this is your image, right? But this image, as you can see here, is binary, right? Normally we're used to having a JSON output in n8n, but binary is what a file is and what it comes out as. It's not JSON. So this image, you have to then try and get it. Now I was having so much trouble trying to get it, because if we go here, you can see on the left hand side, if we go to JSON, right, so maybe not, for some reason it's not showing me, but essentially this, it would come up like this, but in some JSON format. But you can see that actually we can't get the image. So you have this your image, but that's just an object which has inside it the name, the type, and the size. We don't want that. We want the actual image itself. So shout out to this guy here, Magicops AI. We'll skip this advert. Sorry, mate. Oh, I can't even skip it. Gutted. Giving you the ad revenue there by accident. In his video, he has 10 tips. I think it's 10. And this last one here is binary recall, which is essentially how do you go back and get like an image or something. And he provides this code here. So lifesaver. Cheers, mate. Basically here, this returns the JSON for your on-form submission, but it also returns a binary. So if we execute this here, we'll see the output, we have two things, and one of them is a binary, which is your image. So we now have your image. The reason we need this here is because in the upload to Cloudinary here, we have the URL of, or I'll explain this more in a minute, of where we're going, etc. But then if we come down here, we have n8n binary file, which is your image. So let's go through this actually top to bottom so you understand what's happening. So this here is an HTTP request. So we're essentially sending a HTTP request, which is just like a message across the internet. So it's HTTP, it's like a packaged protocol. So everyone expects internet messages to look like this, right? Kind of like that. The method is get. So we want to get something, right? And we're going to hit this URL, which is this upload URL. So api.cloudinary, and then here we're passing in this cloud ID, which is what I was referring to before with this set vars. So on here, set vars, you can see that we have this cloud ID. So you just drag and drop that in there. And then authentication none. But if we go down further, you'll see that we actually do authenticate. So we're uploading an image. What we're sending is, first things first, is the file. So the file we're sending is called your image because that's what it's called in the preceding node. So in that get binary data, let me see here, we have, this is just the JSON, but if we see it like this, you see the output is in binary and it's named your image, and we're using that there, your underscore image, to pass in here. So that's the name of the field in this n8n binary file. So here I was trying loads to use like this type of format to go back and get it from a previous node, but it just wouldn't work. But this works perfectly. So the next thing here is the timestamp. So now we're getting into the authentication piece. We're pulling in from that generate signature node here. So generate signature. We're pulling in this timestamp. Then our API key, that's from the setting of the variables here, API key. And then we have the signature, which is using our secret, and the timestamp to create this signature, which is this here, and we pass that in. And this here now, when we execute it, we'll upload our picture to our cloud. So there we go, that's it done. You can see that what it returns here, all of this, bunch of stuff, but what we're interested in right now is this URL. So we have this URL here, which if we copy that, will then take us to our image. So we paste that in here. Boom, there you go, that's our image is now uploaded to the internet. So this image, we're going to use that to generate the headshot. So if we open up generate headshot, it's another HTTP request. And inside here, we want to hit this apireplicate.com, blah, 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 blah. So let me open up this here, which is Flux Context Apps Professional Headshot. If we go to, let me see, I'll remove this here so that we can just go to the main screen. So if we remove that after the question mark, because after the question mark is a query, so it's like something's happened to the page or you're changing the page. You'll notice it on Google as well. So just like a quick random side note. On Google, google.com, if you then search something, search that, you see it says search question mark Q equals, and that's the query. So like, if you remove all that, you'll go back to Google. Right, whatever, just a little random snippet. So this is the example here that they use for the professional headshot. Here's the original image here on the left, and here's the output on the right. So for this input, you can see that we have HTTP if you click on there. So once you've signed up to Replicate, it is so cheap, it is 4 cents. Now I'm in the UK, so that makes that about 3 pence. So 3 pence per headshot, 3 pence. Normally, these SaaS products are like $25 a month or something, and you get like 20 headshots. Sure, you need to pay for n8n and then for people to actually use it, etc. But the fact that you could run this for 4 cents is crazy. So anyway, we have this here, which is a curl. Also, you can actually get your API token here just by copying that, because this after here, that equals blah, blah, blah. This is your API token, so you can just click show, and then you can copy and paste that for you to get your API token. But this here, this is the HTTP format, so the curl command for this HTTP request. Don't get bogged down in what this is, but essentially here we have the authorization. So who are you? Prove it's you. That's why you use your token. What are you sending them? You're sending it some JSON, because that's what this stuff is here. And then we have our input, which is our gender, our background, our input image, aspect ratio, output format, and then safety tolerance. Now this safety tolerance, when I've had this before at 0, because it can be either 0, 1 or 2. When I put it at 0, it creates a picture which just looks like this type of AI here, like this background shot and stuff, but then my actual face on it, like just photoshopped on, slapped on. Whereas if you do the safety tolerance of 2, it's like it becomes more creative and actually tries to kind of almost like cartoonize your face a little bit more, but like in a way that makes it look better. So anyway, makes it blend in a bit better. So I always have that at 2. That's why I don't have it in the submission. But anyway, you can copy this here and then head on over. And when you create the HTTP node, you can import the curl, paste it in there and click import, and it will automatically populate all of this stuff for you, or most of it. So it will populate this URL, which we have here, blah, blah, blah. We have the post method up top. And then we want to send the headers, which are the authorization. And then we have bearer, space, and then your API key. Prefer to wait. And then under here, you're sending your body, and you're sending it in raw, so application JSON, so actually sending it in JSON. And inside here, if we open this up, you can see we have all of the stuff the same as the example, but here we're passing in the information. So we have gender, we're passing that in from on form submission. We have the input image, which is just that JSON URL from the previous node. That's why you can just go JSON, because that's previous node. You don't have to actually specify what's the name of the node. So like here it's on form submission, and you just basically just drag and drop them like this, and then that's you sorted. So that's the makeup of that, and literally just click execute, and now this will go away and generate the headshot, and it will give us back a URL of the headshot. Now you can actually go straight into replicate and go and have a look at it. So if we go to I think it's a dashboard and then predictions, because they call it predictions when it runs. You can see I've got a bunch here. So there's web ones and API ones. If we click on the top one, you can see that's predict time. It took 7 seconds, created less than a minute ago. Open that one up, and there we go. So let's click on this little shortcut here. Pop is open, and that is the image that it's created. So I mean, I think it's amazing. Like to use this just as like your LinkedIn picture, because for reference as well, remember, let me see if I can zoom out. Your LinkedIn picture is going to be like that small, maybe like half the size of that. So it doesn't have to be perfect to be really good. But anyway, I think it is actually really, really good. So here it has all the information. So the input, you can actually see it in HTTP format. So what I actually sent in, which is cool. And then you can see the output as well in the JSON format of what you get sent back. But from here as well, you can tweak it, share it, download it, etc. So once these have actually run, you can go just straight into your dashboard, predictions, and that's sure. But as you can see, like, I mean, I've done all of these and I've only spent 60 cents this month, which is incredible. So let's go back to the headshot generator, and it's given us this back. You can see down at the bottom here, we have URLs, get. So this here is the URL to get the image. So we've now generated that headshot, but you see the output is in JSON. We want the actual image. So go to download headshot, and inside here it's just a get method for the URL of the JSON.output. So where's that come from? This output here. And then here we have the response. We want it to be a file, and we're going to call that file image.png. And if we execute this step, it will go away and get it and bring it down. And there we go, we've got image.png. If we view, there we go, boom, we've got a little headshot. That's so cool. So, haven't even had to leave the house. We now have our headshot. Let's send it in an email. So, inside of our Gmail one here, you want to connect our credential. So what you can do is just click on the pen here, and you just sign in with Google. Because I'm using n8n in the cloud, you don't have to faff around with projects and stuff. You just sign in, which is honestly like the best thing ever. Because normally I would use the self-hosted, but it's a nightmare for connecting up this stuff. I always forget what to do. But anyway, connect that up. Resources message, because you're sending a message. It could be a draft or whatever. Operation, you're going to send. You could do a bunch of other stuff. To here, I just have my email address. But something cool here is you could capture their email on the form submission. So let me see if it would work here. Schema, scroll back, on form submission. You could capture it here and then like drag and drop it in here. And then it could dynamically send it to their email and they could just fill it out in the form, which I think would be a cool thing when we're developing this into a full-blown SaaS. Then we'll have the subject. I've just called it new headshot. Send in HTML, and I've got thank you for using Headshot Pro, and the headshot is attached. Make sure the tag is when you upload it to LinkedIn. And then I attach image.png, which is the name of the downloaded headshot, as I just shown you, binary here for downloaded headshot, image.png. And if we run this, it will then send this email. Now in here, obviously you can change the message, etc. And you can even add in the URL from it as well. So like in the download headshot, you have that output. You can even add that in there and send them that. The only thing is they'll then go to replicate.delivery and see that they could have done it for 4 cents. You know, so. But you've done all this hard work to set up the workflow. That's why you get paid more than 4 cents. And n8n's like $20 or $30. So we execute this step and it will then send this email. Let's go and check that out. And here we go. New headshot. Thanks for using Headshot Pro. Blah, blah, blah. Make sure the tag is. And there's the headshot attached to the email. Boom. So then we have this code section here. So now that's all done. It's sent. It's generated and sent it. Now we want to generate here our authorization with this, essentially this specific format of logging in. So basically, for Cloudinary to delete an image, you have to pass in the authorization. If you recall before, it was bearer for, I don't think it's for this. No, so in Cloudinary we were passing in just the values, but in replicate, you use like the normal authorization, which is headers, and you do bearer, space, and then your key, right? Whereas to delete it here, you actually have to, for Cloudinary, you send authorization, and then in here I have this code, which is basic instead of bearer, space, and then you have this thing which is it's a base 64 string of your key colon your secret key. So you don't have to worry about what this does, but just if you're wondering, basically you get the key, you get the secret key, you add them together, and then you get the base 64 of that. So basically gets two of them, chucks them together, jumbles them up, and then send that up. You send that as this authorization basic. So if we execute this, the output will give us this JSON, which is authorization, and we have this basic blah blah blah. And that's what we're then passing in to the headers here. So for authorization, to say that it's us. And for this one, we're passing in this URL. So the method is delete because we want to delete the original image. We don't want to leave it up there in Cloudinary land. And we have API Cloudinary blah blah blah. Then we have our set. Let me open this up so you can see a bit better. So we have our here Cloud ID, which we got from that set vars from previously. And then we also have afterwards, we have this resources image upload. So we're trying to get the image to delete now. And it's the public ID from the upload to Cloudinary. So this public ID here, that's the public ID of your image. Public ID doesn't necessarily mean, for reference, that it is public, I don't think. But it just is it's the name, like the globally unique name for it. As you can see, it's just a bunch of jumbled letters and numbers. So we have that here, sorted, and there we go. So that will then delete this here. And if we run that, it will then delete our image. Boom, and that's it. Done, deleted. And so there we go. That's the entire workflow. You submit something, it then goes, generates the headshot, sends the email, and sorts you out. Boom. It is literally that simple. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a fully fledged SaaS. Because sure, the form is cool, but it'd be so much better to be a website and then also to sell it to people. Because I think, why couldn't you generate like 5 for 99 cents? I don't think that's unrealistic. So anyway, if you like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure to go and check out AI Automation Pro to get help with creating blueprints just like this. When you join, I'll create your first blueprint. If you need any help, you just let me know and I will fix it in 24 hours. We also have a free AI Automation Hub community where you can go and get this template straight away. So, hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one. Take care.